What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another weather forecast here by Adrian's Weather Forecast. And this is going to be another video here on the severe weather as we are getting closer to March and closer to tornado season. I figured we should start getting a lot more towards, I guess, the tornado and severe weather topic. So this is going to be a video on why this tornado season / severe weather season could be closely related to a very active season such as 2011 here. We'll be looking at the pattern and what we're seeing right now with the La Nina and what we're expecting in the future months and why, of course, that can lead to us seeing extremely very active activity across a portion of spring and as well into summer here across Dixie Valley and the plains and Midwest. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking at throughout this video. A whopping 88% of you guys in the community post did vote that you guys wanted this video. So I thought, let's go ahead and talk about this since you guys really seem to really want this topic. But if you guys want to know more about severe weather and you guys want to subscribe and watch me track the upcoming very active tornado season to come, then be sure to subscribe as well. If you want to get the latest post on severe weather or any weather video, be sure to hit the bell icon. And as well, be sure to hit the like button if you really enjoyed the video. And if you have any questions, of course, go ahead and ask them in the comments below, and I will do my best to respond to them. But I really want to, of course, now start by first looking at what we're seeing here across portions of the Pacific Ocean here. I do see we are still having a, oops, I don't want to actually have the yellow type black. You can kind of see we are seeing a La Nina-like, I guess, characteristics across the central and much of the eastern Pacific. As you see, the 3.4 region is seeing well below average temperatures, and that kind of stretches across all the way off South America to a portion of the central Pacific. So that's kind of where we have those very cold temperatures. So we still have La Nina-like characteristics across portions of the Pacific. So we're still seeing some good signs. This is one of the many signs that we could be seeing a above average activity for severe weather, and obviously that does also hint for a more active hurricane season. But again, this is more towards the severe weather part, as this La Nina has a way better chance of actually sticking around for spring than in summer here. So we definitely have almost a guaranteed chance of actually having a La Nina characteristics across the United States here as we get into, let's say, March, April, and May, when that severe weather really starts to kick in mind. So La Nina, in general, they tend to bring in more active tornado seasons and severe weather, as we will be seeing that kind of cold air more towards the west and that kind of warmer, humid air. So that's going to lead to a lot of instability and boom, severe weather across these areas here. So this is kind of one reason why. And I have really been kind of comparing this season to 2011. Obviously, I'm not comparing them saying 2021 is going to see a thousand plus tornadoes like we saw in 2011 here. I mean, 2011 was absolutely just a massive season here. Absolute crazy outbreaks we saw. We saw so many outbreaks throughout the Dixie Valley region and across the plains. I mean, we see outbreaks every year, but the outbreaks we saw in 2011 were just absolutely crazy. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but what I'm saying is the actual SST actually like SSTs in the Pacific are very, very similar here. That doesn't exactly mean we're going to be seeing an exact season like we saw in 2011, but it does lead to, I guess, a hint that we're seeing very similar characteristics here. So I do see 2011 was a very strong La Nina in February of this is actually exactly 10 years ago. You see February 21st, and that's exactly what today is. So you can kind of see 10 years later, we have kind of some similar characteristics. You can kind of see those warmer waters across the northwestern South America region, as well as Central America. Same thing there. Northwestern South America and portions of Central American coast do have those warmer waters as well. Those warmer waters are across the South Pacific. Same thing there. Really warm waters are across the South Pacific. So we have very close details that are very similar to what we saw exactly 10 years ago. Really cold waters. This was a very strong La Nina. We don't have a super strong La Nina as at the moment. We actually did see a very strong La Nina, though, however, last month. So, again, this is just one thing that we got to really keep in mind. A very close pattern between now, of course. Keep that in mind. Look at that 2011 of February 21st. Obviously, this is kind of what we saw in all of the reports between January 1st and December 27th of 2011. You see it was kind of more towards of course, eastern season, which is obviously we kind of, that's kind of obviously where we see that severe weather. But look at the tornadoes here. So obviously, just because we have very similar atmospheric conditions than we saw in 2011, exactly 10 years ago in February, doesn't mean we're going to be seeing exactly what happened in the actual season. That's obviously a very bold and dumb prediction to say, but really, if the season does plan out how 2011 is, which it kind of really is, we've already seen very active severe weather events. We've already seen an enhanced risk, and we already saw 2 PDS tornadoes in one day. So the season of 2021 is already starting off quite significant. So if this does happen, if we do get a very similar 2011 pattern, because we're seeing very similar La Nina patterns, very similar SSTs across the Atlantic and across the Pacific, we got to really watch out exactly and learn from what happened in 2011. 2011 was obviously Dixie Alley, a big Dixie Alley year, and as well a quite significant even Ohio Valley year, but really Alabama, Mississippi got the hit the hardest from 2011. So I think we have to learn a lesson and kind of see, since we are starting at a very similar pace than 2011. I mean, I believe we saw more tornadoes in January last month than January 2011. So got to really keep in mind. So I think we got to really watch out for the Dixie Alley this year, and we got to watch out across the whole United States this year where we have severe weather hotspots, because this year is looking to be active in general. So I think we got to really watch out for these areas this year, across areas like the Ozarks, Dixie Alley, as well as portions of the plains here. You can kind of see we saw quite a ton of tornadoes there. We did see 1,894 tornadoes there in 2011 here. I'm not saying that we're going to get as many tornadoes as that, but I think there's definitely a chance we can get very close. We saw a total of 30,000 storm reports, and as well up to, I believe this is 9,000 hail reports and 19,000 wind reports. So you can kind of see Alabama got 177 tornadoes. Got hit the hardest, with Mississippi right behind. So we gotta really, really watch out. But you can kind of see January started off very slow, but the peak came in April, of course, and then a second one in May. So we are starting off at a slow pace as well. We're below average, just like 2011. So I think just because we're slow right now doesn't mean we're not going to get to a big jump like 2011. You see February kind of little pace, March was kind of dead, but April is going to, I think I'm quite worried for April, not just because it happened in 2011, but just because that's when obviously we kind of see our peak. Wind damage definitely widespread, and wind or large hail was obviously widespread. So obviously, just my second reason for us, I guess, seeing a similar 2011 year is because the actual events of what happened so far this year. An example, what we saw in January this year, January 1st from January 31st, I believe we saw 16 tornadoes between this whole month. So we saw quite a bit in Georgia, a few in Florida, quite a bit in Texas, a few there, a couple there in Oklahoma, a couple in California, and then a few scattered across the United States here. So we did have, I believe, 16 tornadoes there. And I believe the average for January is 35. So we are below average by quite a bit here. So was 2011, though. 2011 was quite slow as well. And what we saw in January is very interesting. We saw a lot of days last month. We saw multiple tornadoes in these severe weather events. Obviously, we didn't have any enhanced risk, but in the days we did actually have tornadoes, we had like 2 or 3 a day. Very common. We obviously saw it in Georgia. We saw 2 in the Panhandle the same day. We saw 3 in Oklahoma the same day. 2 in California the same day. 2 in Texas the same day. So we saw quite a few events where we've had 2 or more tornadoes in the same day. Obviously, that's nothing like catastrophic or rare. It's just a signal that we are seeing little kind of spots where we have a lot of tornadoes developing in similar areas in the same day. So that's kind of really worrying if like you think about March and April that are just around the corner there. So we're not only are we comparing the SSTs, which obviously isn't, I guess, the best way to compare, but the best way to compare is that we're already seeing kind of events developing that are leading to a very roaring season here. The example as well, I believe this happened in February 15th. We saw 4 tornadoes in the same day there this month, and obviously 2 of those in Georgia. I actually saw one of them in Georgia, obviously a PDS tornado, and another one in North Carolina was also a PDS tornado here. I believe those were all obviously major tornadoes and dangerous, as the National Weather Service ranked those extremely dangerous tornadoes here. So we saw 4 tornadoes in the same day on February 15th. 2 of those were actually PDS. So 50% of the tornadoes we saw this day in literally the winter, we saw PDS warnings. 2 of those. And we already saw 32 wind reports there and 9 large hail reports of 2-inch diameter or more. And we saw 45 reports, which is actually quite a bit here, considering this was a slight risk. 45 reports isn't too shabby here, and this is another event leading that we are seeing potentially maybe a 2011 like season. We already saw in February, literally dead of winter, 2 PDS warnings here, or 2 PDS tornadoes already, 2 of them in the same day. So I think we're already seeing the La Nina effects here. We're already starting to see some events occurring already only in the winter that are leading to things you normally don't see, like 2 PDS warnings or 2 PDS tornadoes in the same day. And obviously the 16 tornadoes is nothing. Obviously that's well below average, but again, it's just the little things like seeing multiple not outbreaks, but multiple, I guess, days where we've had more than 2 tornadoes in the same day in similar areas, and almost the exact area. So it's kind of showing that these storms are getting strong, of course, and they're lasting quite a while here. And I believe we are about to start tornado season early this year. I do believe we will be, I guess, entering the season a lot earlier, as storms are going to get a lot worse. I think next month won't be super active, but I do believe we will start to see some more enhanced risk developing. And then April, I do believe we will be seeing some very strong storms and a few potential outbreaks here. And I do believe there's a chance for maybe a large one as well, just considering what we've already seen so far in the dead of winter. And then as the conditions, the temperatures rise, and this La Nina kind of stays where it's at, those all will kind of lead towards favorable conditions for a quite active tornado season. But another thing we should look at is the temperature anomaly here for the next few months here. So obviously, you're gonna really want very warm temperatures and very high humidity, plus a very high CAPE, so you can have that overday heating and a ton of energy, and that's going to allow for thunderstorms to develop. But if you really want these storms to be very severe, you're going to really want as well a lot of helicity and as well a lot of instability here. So the thing about storms is you're going to really want warm air and where these storms actually develop with cold air behind it. So this will be obviously if you have kind of cold air in this whole western region, you got really warm air in the eastern, there's going to be a chance for some storms to develop across this area. That's kind of how that'll work here. So March is looking potentially, we can see some decent storms if the monthly is actually correct. We can see some decent storms potentially developing in these areas. Or actually not in the actual Midwest, but I'm going to kind of keep this area right here. We can see some storms developing that are quite severe. I'm not saying tornado-wise, but there could be starting to see some storms that are becoming quite severe now as temperatures do warm up. Obviously, the Arctic blast is well over in the south central, and we're going to start seeing some 70s developing. So we're going to start seeing that humidity rising, CAPE rising. April not looking too good as well, kind of having the La Nina-like pattern, that cold air in the Pacific Northwest and a very warm eastern and southern United States there. So that's always going to kind of really raise concerns towards the plains here. But obviously, April's more of a Dixie Alley region, so you're going to kind of really watch out as humidity does come from the Gulf. We're going to have a kind of front developing there. We're going to allow for some instability, so it's going to kind of really raise concerns right here. So if we have a front developing in this whole area, that's going to allow for that cold air to be in the backside, and that can allow for some large squall lines to develop here, which obviously that's actually what we saw in the February 15th event. We saw squall lines, and that's kind of what developed those PDS tornadoes. May, you can kind of see that cold air kind of still sticking around to the north. And as we get now to May, that kind of severe weather starts to move now. It stays in Dixie Alley, of course, but it kind of starts to move more towards the north as the north starts to feel their spring. 70s are coming out, and then especially June is going to be quite a big Midwestern season, as well as the temperatures will be very warm according to the monthly forecast here. It's going to be a warm United States in general, so kind of looking at that widespread La Nina effect there. Same thing, Kansas as well, showing a very similar scenario. You kind of have the average or colder temperatures towards the Pacific Northwest, and those very warm temperatures in Dixie Valley and as well the South Central. So definitely that's going to be some rising concerns. April, kind of having that warmest air towards the Pacific, or not Pacific Northwest, towards the Southwest, and then kind of seeing some, I guess, slightly above average temperatures across areas in Dixie Valley, portions of the South Central, and portions of the Central Plains. Again, it obviously just because it shows, it doesn't mean there's going to be big outbreaks. It's just saying that we are looking at some very warm temperatures that will be as well leading to some potentially very high CAPE, as the sun obviously will be providing a lot of energy, warmer temperatures, leading to some more favorable conditions, especially if there's cold air behind, kind of towards behind the actual systems. That will really allow for quite a ton of instability there. That cold air and warm air, that's going to really watch for tornadoes. But obviously, you're not going to really need an actual cold front to see these severe storms to actually develop. You're going to really need a lot of CAPE, really nice helicity, and just a lot of humidity. That's going to really want, as well, a lot of shear as well. You're going to really want a lot of shear. But all the way to July, seeing some really warm temperatures in general. So Kansas, the monthly forecast really showing some really warm temperatures. So definitely not a good sign. Definitely not something you want to see. For the monthly now precipitation forecast here in the next month, which is March, we're really watching for some really wet conditions across portions of Dixie Valley, like Louisiana, Mississippi, northern Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, as well Arkansas, kind of towards the northern region of Dixie Valley there. We actually do have some very humid conditions there, really wet conditions there. And same thing all the way to April, seeing some very wet conditions across portions of the South Central, far western Dixie Valley, and that moisture is going to continue to all the way into May. Some nice moisture across the Mid-Atlantic, across portions, or not Mid-Atlantic, sorry, the Midwest, across the Midwest, portions of the South Central. Obviously, this won't be 100% accurate. It probably won't even be 80% accurate, but really watching for next month in April, as they do forecast quite a wet Dixie Valley, or at least portions of Dixie Valley. You can kind of see quite wet in these areas here. And if we do have that, we do have the CAPE, we do have the helicity, we do have the warm temperatures. This will really rise concerns for some storms to develop here. So obviously, we're going to have to get a lot closer to obviously see the actual precipitation, the actual temperatures, all that. Because obviously the monthly can be very inaccurate or it can be very accurate. And just based on all this information I provided in this whole video, this is kind of my map for where we'll be seeing, I guess, the most active severe weather. So obviously, the deeper the shade you are in, the better the chance we're looking at for severe weather outbreaks this season. So you can kind of see in that lighter red, we're going to be seeing a slight chance for seeing some big and dangerous severe weather events here. It doesn't mean there won't be any tornadoes in these areas. It just means it's a lot. Again, this isn't a chance. This map doesn't represent the chance of getting a tornado. It just represents kind of, I guess, where we'll be seeing the worst of the tornado. What will be where the worst, or I guess the heart of these outbreaks will be this year. So in the first shade, the light red, we will be seeing a very low chance and minimal dangerous severe weather activity. We will see some tornadoes in these areas in the red if we get those big storms, specifically at Florida, if we have as well the Carolinas. We will be getting tornadoes in these areas though. It's just they won't be like big dangerous outbreaks. And the dangerous, more in the kind of dangerous red there, kind of be seeing a better chance of seeing some severe weather events that could be significant, whether it's an enhanced risk, whether it's at a decent risk for severe weather. You're gonna have a better chance there. In that darker red there, kind of having, I guess, a slight increasement towards chances compared to the light red. If you're in the purple, then we are gonna get a very good chance for getting either one or a few significant severe weather events this year, whether it's whether it's an enhanced, whether it's a moderate. We're looking at a very significant chance for, if you're in the purple, of course, like Dallas, Atlanta, St. Louis, Rapid City, near Fargo as well. Really, we're looking at a very good chance, or at least a decent chance, or I guess the best word is solid chance for getting some very significant severe weather and quite a few events throughout this year. Doesn't mean there's going to be a high risk or moderate risk in these areas. It just means we will be getting a ton of activity this year for severe weather, and obviously a good chance for getting some tornadoes in these areas. Now, if you're in the kind of that light pink near Omaha, Oklahoma City, areas as well near Birmingham and Montgomery, that's where we're seeing a very good chance for getting the heart of the severe weather this year. That includes Dixie Valley all the way up to areas like the Midwest there and the Dakotas. Really watching for a very active tornado and severe weather season in these areas. In these areas, we can possibly get some very high chances, like in moderate risk. I'm not sure about higher risk, but you're definitely looking at a potential significant season this year. A ton of tornadoes will be moving in these areas. Definitely going to need to prepare for the upcoming season, especially as these areas are really hinting towards activity in these areas. And if you're in the white areas like near Omaha, if you're in the white near Little Rock, Joplin, Kansas City, Tulsa, and those areas, and as well in the other side of the Mississippi, we are looking at in that white potentially the worst of the severe weather this year. So that includes portions of the western Dixie Valley, like Mississippi, Tennessee, and portions of Arkansas, and that's going to go all the way up to areas like the Central Plains. And this white, this is obviously it's still pretty early, far out, so this could change. This map could change later on, but as of now, these areas in the white is where I think we'll get possibly the worst and the heart of the severe weather this year. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys liked it, and hope it informed you guys. But see you guys later.